Hey folks, Leslie here. It's been a little while, and I've got something new for you today, but first, I wanted to clear the air. So, when this show started, I imagined I'd find a fascinating niche community every few weeks and disappear into it and then come back with a story. And for a surprising stretch of time, it actually worked for a while. But I found that some of these stories take months or even years to report well. Double Dutch is a good example of this. It was a story I first started chasing before the very initial episode of this show was ever released. So I've had to think about Niche to Meet You a little differently, and you might have gathered as much from the lack of new episodes. And the great thing about being an indie show is that we can do whatever we want here. So instead of trying to be an always-on podcast, I want this to be a place for stories to live when they're ready. And that means there may be longer stretches between documentary episodes. But that doesn't mean the feed is going silent, because the Niche Notes Substack exists. And this is where I put shorter and smaller vignettes from niche reporting I'm doing for NPR and for my own enjoyment. And today's episode is one of those that I'm going to run here. Earlier this year, I got to report from Nashville's Yarn Fest for NPR. And the 3-minute feature that went on the air was this delightful pop-in to the event. But while I was there, I met a group of women wearing the same shirt. And that got us talking about how something like yarn can lead to active resistance in a peaceful and very passive-looking way. So today, please come with me to Yarn Fest, where you're going to meet fiber enthusiasts who are literally changing the world.
So we come now to a highly anticipated event. We're going to dip right into the Nash Yarn Fest fashion show. Yes. And
it was 90 degrees in Nashville on the first day of the second annual Yarn Fest. And the main event after lunch that day was a fashion show. Organizers thought that because of the heat, maybe it would be better to have participants hold their sweaters, scarves and ponchos and coats rather than sport them. But none of the models opted for that. Best worn, these items were on full display as their creators came on stage, one after the other, spinning, strutting, waving. Older women, younger women, even men took the catwalk, all while the best in upbeat pop music played over the speakers, and organizers Ann Shane and Kay Gardner talked about the pieces.
The designer for this is Teti Litzak. This is a design that we are really excited about. Teti Litzak is a self-taught Ukrainian artist.
When the show was over, the crowd dispersed to breakout sessions and to visit the many vendors who came with knitting paraphernalia and brightly colored yarn, sold in hanks, where the yarn is looped around itself in a way that resembles that of a braided donut. As the masses separated, an attendee's shirt caught my eye. "Knitting is resistance," it read in white block letters on a black shirt. I approached and asked her to explain, but she said, "I know who you should talk to," and took off toward the stage, leaving me to scurry behind her, trying to balance microphones and headphone cables without tripping. Her name was Stephanie Bograd, and she was on the hunt for someone. I pressed record as she approached a woman who was just part of the fashion show, sporting a sweater with intricate lettering woven into the hem. Her name is Jen Geigley. Stephanie grabbed Jen's arm.
She's doing a story for NPR, and she was just asking about my shirt. And I said, I could talk about it, but you need to talk about it, not me. And she said,
Jen zoned in, and without my asking, ascertained that perhaps the middle of a crowd was no place for such a conversation.
There's like quiet rooms, yeah.
She led me towards said rooms, and as we walked, like cats to cream, more knitting as resistance shirts emerged. With each appearance, Jen collected them.
Hi. So come with us, because we're part of it. It's a huge, beautiful story. It's all connected.
By the time the quiet room was reached, there were 4 women who had been willingly absconded, all with their resistance tees in full display. They each took a seat at the round table. They were
Jen Geigley from Des Moines, Iowa.
Ruth Leonard, Kingsport, Tennessee.
Stephanie Bograd, Jersey City, New Jersey.
Caroline Fowles, Heber City, Utah.
Jen got down to business by telling me about the shirts, by first talking about a nationwide event that had just completed earlier in the week called the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon.
We all do a knitting marathon. It's 12 hours long. We do it usually every April.
2026 was the 6th year of the event, which raises money for nonprofits working to curb hunger and food insecurity. The fundraising works like a walkathon, with donors committing to give a certain amount throughout the event as knitters across the country did their thing for 12 hours straight. Jen's personal fundraising campaign included the very shirts all these women were wearing when a local screen printer in her community learned about the knit-a-thon.
And they're like, how could we be part of this? And I said, let's do some t-shirts. And it really took off. And there's knitters from all over the country who have bought this t-shirt every year. So they collect the proceeds of this t-shirt all year long and then give a lump sum donation. So this year, that helped me raise $6,000 on my own.
The exact 2026 total came in at over $559,776, all of which was given away to Feeding America, World Central Kitchen, No Kid Hungry, and Meals on Wheels. Jen was still riding the high.
You can do it by yourself. You can create a team. You can do it at home. You can get together with people in your community. People organize little meetups. Anyone can be part of it. It makes a big difference. One stitch at a time, us all knitting together. And yeah, this t-shirt is part of that.
Then they told me about the message on the shirt. It was inspired by a quote by fellow knitter Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, though of course she's better known as a United States representative and her initials AOC.
She said, "Tyranny is eroded by a sea of small acts. Everything matters."
This quote is part of a longer Blue Sky post from January 2025 when the Trump administration began its work immediately enacting executive orders and undoing many Biden-era initiatives. And in a moment of coincidental synchronicity, her very next post on Blue Sky, the same day, was a repost of an account which welcomed her to the #knit thread, inviting her to feel free to ask any questions. To which AOC responded, along with a photo of her recent knitting project, quote, "Thank you, I'll have plenty. I used to crochet a long time ago and just started knitting a few weeks ago. It's been a great way to stop doom scrolling and reflect." AOC has discovered what many fiber enthusiasts know to be true, which is how the activity anchors one in the present and physical moment. I covered this in my NPR piece, alluding to recent studies about the mental health benefits of knitting and crocheting. But as I sat around the table with these women, I admired that this tool for personal benefit had actually built bridges to places outside themselves. We were sitting for several minutes when a new Resistance shirt joined us at the table. Her name was Erica Kane.
It's not just for the knitter. I think it is the knitter spreading that love across the community. Whether we're wearing knitting tees because we, feel upset with what's happening around us, we're outraged, we're angry, all of the things, or we're just looking at our community and there's a need because people are cold or they're unhoused, and how can we uplift one another and provide that warmth from within our circle, but also beyond.
Her example of knitting hats and scarves in the community, along with the knit-a-thon itself, model the tangible communal contribution of knitting. Stephanie Bograd offered another story about a knitfluencer named Kara, who opposes the immigration raids that have started in the U.S.
She has been having knitters from around the country, and I think around the world, knit hats and scarves for family members of people who are in a detention center in Newark, New Jersey, and she just brings baskets and baskets of them so that while they're standing in line in the cold, they could get something that was hand knit by someone.
This story reminded me of regular citizens in Minnesota just a couple months earlier who, inundated with ICE presence, felt helpless to act. Friends in the Twin Cities told me about their workplaces and daycares covertly collecting food and home-cooked meals for families terrified to leave their homes, or just for each other. A dear friend wrote about opening her home to friends just to talk, to set down the emotional baggage of the weeks around soup and bread, her primary love language. Of the time spent together, she said, quote, "Without hesitation, we are seeking to be together, to be community. In the midst of chaos, the calm of gathering, listening, and sharing strengthens for the continued standing guard, speaking out, and walking alongside." When I shared this around our round table of knitters, how neighbors were quietly supporting one another through craft and making food, They mentioned that clandestine protest or support has historical precedence in knitting as well.
During World War II, women would knit these codes. So they would pass codes through garments.
Someone would drop a hat and a soldier would pick it up, or someone, and it would convey information, and nobody had any idea that these women were doing this.
And they could also sit and knit while people were having secretive conversations and no one really noticed them.
But the resistance began in their own lives, learning to knit in their homes before it reached outward too. You might have seen stories during the Minnesota ice raids of local yarn shops selling patterns based on a Norwegian hat that was worn to oppose Nazi occupation in the 1940s. I brought this hat up as we sat around the table at Yarn Fest.
Did any of you make the hats?
Yeah, I'm on my third one.
In an NPR story about the hats, a Norwegian historian remarked that the hat was, quote, used in the period of the war where everything looked dark, end quote. He said that its purpose was to bolster morale, quote, to keep up hope and not descend into hopelessness and apathy. But this work, especially when it comes to the analog slowness of knitting, has its limits. This reminds me of the Pope's recent reflections on AI. He argues technology can connect us, but can also divide and exclude. And he suggests that human flourishing doesn't come from escaping our limitations, but from embracing them. In that spirit, these knitters and Minnesotans and Norwegians were refusing to become disconnected from each other, and instead chose to embrace their limits. In this era that increasingly asks us to live as big as we can through screens and algorithms, feeds and abstractions, RSS feeds even, knitting and other things like it remains stubbornly physical. It requires attention, patience, and maybe it's best understood in community.
We actually get together every Saturday afternoon and knit together, even though we're in different time zones and everything. And one of the great things about that is even if we don't live in an area that is very supportive of our ideas, we have these friends online who do, that we can have discussions with, and we knit while we're talking. So
It's more than just a hobby to us. It's a movement, and it does a lot of good.
I hope you enjoyed this episode, my new niche buddy. There are more episodes waiting for you wherever you're listening to this one right here, right now. So go find them, like our episode about dog agility, or like vintage car radio restoration. There is so much more to be found in the Nicheverse. I'm so glad to have had you with us. Don't be a stranger. We'll see you next time.